Hello everyone, I'm Professor Planck. I respond to various theological and ideological questions and claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the opposite viewpoint and help to balance the conversation. Before we get into today's video, a special shout out to my most recent super thankers, Fred Zerez 7875, RJ 66600, Piao Meow Noir in a Waifu Car, and Oxcart 4172. Thank you all very much for your kind support of my channel. You are the secular swing of my heretical hammer coming down on creationism in the form of a stack of Nickelback CDs. Thank you very much for helping me continue to do what I do. And if you like what you see in this video and would like to help out the channel, make sure to subscribe, click the bell so you'll always be notified when new content comes out. And of course, like this video and maybe pop in a comment, because all that stuff really does go a long way towards pleasing the YouTube algorithm and keeping my channel motoring along. Now on to today's video. So Tim Barnett of Red Pin Logic, by way of Stand to Reason, otherwise known as Greg Koukl's channel, has a typical shtick of watching non-believer TikToks and short videos and responding to them. Now that's totally cool. I can't really fault him for that. It's very akin to what I do. But just because we're taking the same approach doesn't mean he's immune from criticism when his counter to the videos he's watching is poorly thought out, badly reasoned, and flat out illogical, which is quite a condemnation when his channel is called Red Pin Logic. And in today's video, Tim is taking aim at Christy Burke and one of her TikToks. And by the way, if you aren't familiar with Christy Burke, I highly recommend checking out her channel. She has some great content. And she's making a point in this video about the claim of Christians that they have a relationship with God. And Tim has some thoughts about that. And I've got some thoughts about Tim's thoughts. So let's dive in, shall we?
Christianity is not a religion. It's a relationship with God. Oh, really? So what's God's favorite color? Well, I don't really know. Does God have a favorite movie? What about pets? Does God have any pets? I think dogs go to heaven. He's got a sports guy. Does he like football, basketball, hockey? I don't really know. So you're telling me you have an intimate and personal relationship with God who knows everything about you, knows all of your thoughts, and you don't even know what his favorite color is? But he loves me. Yeah, and you don't know anything about him.
Hello?
Hey, Dad, I have a question for you.
Okay.
What's your favorite color?
Oh, what's this about?
Well, I'm just wondering, I'm actually worried we don't have a good relationship if I don't know your favorite color.
Well, that doesn't really make any sense.
You mind if I take a guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, your favorite color's green.
No, it's blue.
Oh, no. Okay.
Oh, I still love you anyway, Tim.
Okay, thanks, Dad. Gotta go.
Now, maybe you're just being facetious and making a bit of a joke here at the outset, but you seem to be missing the fundamental point that I think Christy is making. It's not about whether or not you actually know God's or your dad's favorite color. And just as an aside, I know my dad's favorite color. How do you not? I mean, geez, take some interest in the personal details of the man who raised you. But now I'm being a bit facetious. So anyway, it's not about actually knowing some innocuous personal details. Christy may have been using humor to make her point because, well, this is a TikTok after all. It's a predominantly humorous medium. But the larger point is about what constitutes having a relationship. And can you really have a relationship with someone who is absolutely absent in any detectable way? It's not that you don't know God's favorite color. It's that you can't know God's favorite color or anything at all about him because you've never spoken with him. Even if you believe you've heard God's voice, you really haven't.
Metatron acts as the voice of God. Any documented occasion when some Yahoo claims that God has spoken to them, they're speaking to me. Or they're talking to themselves.
This video has 3 big problems. Let's look at each together. First, just because you don't know some trivial things about God, like his favorite color or movie, doesn't mean you don't have a relationship with him. This video is a non sequitur. That means it just doesn't follow. Think about the relationship Navy SEALs have towards each other. These men are willing to die for each other. Now, do they know each other's favorite color? Well, not likely. But that doesn't mean they don't have a deep and profound relationship. That's because deep relationships don't trade in trivialities. They're based on something else.
True. And a major aspect of that something else that real relationships are based on is actually having an interaction with the one you're claiming to have a relationship with, which, when it comes to God, you don't. Here, let's continue with the dad analogy that you opened the door to a couple minutes ago. If you had never met your father, never spoken to him, never corresponded with him in any direct way, all you had were stories that your mother and other people told you about him. You've read writings that other people, who have also never met or interacted with your father, supposedly wrote about him. And you've gotten vague, metaphorical, parable-laden stories about him that were heavily distorted by way of various people's interpretive lenses. Then can you really claim to have any kind of a real relationship with that father? Or do you just have an idea of him that you've attached yourself to? And the thing is, there are many people out there who have that exact kind of experience. There are people who were raised without a father, who go their entire lives hearing stories about him and concocting an image in their head of what they imagine him to be like. A fantasy of an idealized father figure. But then, if they should happen to meet him later in life, he rarely lives up to the false idol that they've cooked up in their own minds. And it's all because they never really had a relationship with him to begin with.
It's me, your daddy, Roberto.
Daddy?
You know, I seen you on the ESPN when they was talking about you being drafted by the NFL.
Not going to the NFL. I'm going to stay in school and graduate.
The hell with school, dopey!
You brought up Navy SEALs and the deep connection they have with their fellow SEALs. Of course they have a strong and intense relationship with their squad mates. They know them. They interact with them every day. They share their good times and bad. They depend on each other. It's part of being a team, a unit. There's a bond of brotherhood there. That's a big part of what any military seeks to instill in their enlisted. But again, their fellow SEALs are right there next to them, day in, day out. No one would deny that they have much less of a relationship, to the point of not actually having a personal relationship at all, with, say, Army Rangers, or Marines, or even other Navy SEALs that they have never met before. Now, certainly they have a sense of camaraderie, a certain respect for other enlisted personnel, but wouldn't that be more of a professional respect than anything a normal person would call a relationship? The key point is, how can you ever have a real, true relationship with someone you've never had any real interactions with?
Second, just because you don't know some trivial things about God doesn't mean you don't know anything about God.
No, you don't know anything about God because there exists absolutely no first-hand knowledge about God. Literally everything that you could ever know about God, given to you through various religions, denominations, churches, preachers, scriptures, teachings, and interpretations, is many, many, many times removed from actual first-hand accounts. It's not even second-hand, third-hand, or even fourth-hand hearsay. It's like 157th hand. And if you've ever played a game of telephone in grade school, you know just how garbled any message can be when filtered through a half dozen people over a time period of 30 seconds. Do that with an already complex religious message, filtered through millions of people, across dozens of countries, multiple languages, countless cultural clashes and shifts, over literal millennia, and you think you've gotten correct knowledge of the divine out of any of it?
Here's what I do know about God.
Doug, what is not a damn thing?
I know he's morally perfect, exceedingly merciful, abounding in steadfast love. I know he's someone worthy of our worship and obedience. I know he's given me something more valuable than anything imaginable: forgiveness.
You don't know any of those things. You believe them. I know the waters can get a little muddy when it comes to the difference between knowledge and belief, but when talking about matters of faith, you're almost always dealing with belief, not knowledge. Yes, apologists will often use the two terms interchangeably. Look here, belief is about what you assert to be true. It can be based on evidence, in which case it is rational, or it can be firmly held in absence of corroborating evidence, in which case it is irrational. Now, you said a few things that you claim to know to be true about God. You said,
I know he's morally perfect.
How do you know that? What corroborating evidence do you have? Because there have been plenty of various religions throughout human history that posited non-morally perfect gods, Zeus, Loki, Shiva, Kali Ma, etc. So there's nothing inherent to the idea of a deity that insists on moral perfection. So what do you base that assertion on, besides that it's claimed in the Bible and claimed by the wider Christian faith? Because that is bad evidence, bordering on not actually being evidence at all. So without sound evidence to back that up, that isn't knowledge. It's an irrational belief. You also said,
exceedingly merciful, abounding in steadfast love. I know he's given me something more valuable than anything imaginable: forgiveness.
Same problem. How do you know this? Plenty of gods have been posited who were wrathful, including, for instance, your own God, such as in Romans 12:19. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Or in Namun 1:2, the Lord is a jealous and avenging God. The Lord is avenging and wrathful. The Lord takes vengeance on his adversaries and keeps wrath for his enemies. And, of course, maybe most famously, let's not forget, comes right down to it, all of your claims of knowledge are not based on corroborating evidence that would classify your position as justified true belief, therefore rational, therefore grounded in knowledge, but instead firmly held conviction in the face of an utter lack of evidence, which not only makes them not only belief rather than knowledge, but irrational beliefs at that.
So no, I don't know God's favorite color or movie or number.
Or anything about him at all, including whether or not he actually exists.
Third, this video seems to confuse propositional knowledge and what we might call experiential knowledge. For example, this is the difference between reading about a sunset in a textbook and experiencing one firsthand. Notice what happened in the video. The Christian claims to have a relationship with God, and then the atheist responds by quizzing the Christian on trivial facts about God. How could a Christian have a relationship with God if they don't even know his favorite color?
I think you really do your own argument a disservice when you bring up propositional knowledge versus experiential knowledge. Like the difference between reading about a sunset and actually experiencing one. That is exactly the problem that I think Christie is illustrating. You don't have experiential knowledge of God. All you have is the propositional. You haven't seen the sunset, you've only read about it. You haven't interacted with God in order to have a real relationship with Him. All you've done is read about Him in the Bible, or listened to stories about Him in church, or heard preachers tell you their interpretation of what God is, what He wants, what His attributes are, and so forth. And, as I stated earlier, you've taken those propositional claims and built up a fantasy in your mind that, because you're so attached to it, you've deluded yourself into thinking that you have an actual experiential knowledge and first-hand interactions with, when it's really all just in your head, pal.
Relationships don't demand exhaustive propositional knowledge. Pet lovers might appreciate this. My wife and kids have a relationship of sorts with our dog, Polly. Say hi, Polly. Now we could ask, what's Polly's favorite color? Well, beats me, but we're still best friends, aren't we, Polly?
But see, Tim, this goes right back to the fundamental problem that you consistently miss again and again throughout this video. There's Polly. There she is. I see her right there. You can have an actual relationship with her because you can interact with her directly. Now, if you'd never met Polly, but only heard stories about her, even very detailed stories that captivated you, enthralled you, made you really see Polly in your mind's eye, stories of how she acted, what she did, what she was like, her nature, her attributes, her boundless love and joy. I mean, you really felt that you knew her because of these stories that you would hear about her over and over, every Sunday of your life, and even more often than that. Well, you might feel that you had a real relationship with this Polly. You might even believe that you feel Polly is with you, in spirit, all the time. But then one day, you find out that Polly was completely made up. A total fiction, concocted as the central figure in a belief system that was created and maintained for many varied reasons, some laudable, some malicious, but none based on concrete fact or evidence. You'd realize that you never really had a relationship with Polly, because how could you when she never existed? But you were so sure that you did. Maybe relationships, real relationships, need to be based on more than one individual's desire for it to be real. Maybe real relationships need to be a two-way street. And the only experiential knowledge that you have is from your own perspective, on your own side. It's a purely one-way street, even though you may have convinced yourself that it does actually go both ways. Not because you have any valid reason to think that, but because you want to believe it. So that was Tim's last point, and really it was just more of the same thing as all of his other points. It was all a total misunderstanding of the actual argument. That being that you can't have a real relationship with anyone when you have no connection, no interaction, no back and forth between you. I don't think it was necessarily Tim straw-manning Christie's point, more a lack of steel-manning, a failure to steel-man her position. But if all you have is propositional knowledge, which is all any theist could ever have, then you only have an idea of your God, and you can't have a real relationship with an idea. I think Christie was merely illustrating this lack of a real connection by humorously showing that you can't get even the most basic of real experiential knowledge from your supposed relational partner in God that you could get from about 10 seconds of actual interaction with someone who is actually there. And if you don't like the favorite color question, substitute it for literally anything else. What does God want you to do? And you can't go to love thy neighbor or anything else that was written in a book. That isn't experiential knowledge. It's propositional. You only know it because you read it. Not that you got it right from the horse's mouth. Or maybe, what are 10 things God forbids you to do? And you can't go to the Ten Commandments. That's hearsay from multiple times removed secondhand accounts. What did God tell you through direct interaction not to do? And the answer, if you're being honest and not trying to interpret some butterfly landing on the back of your hand once as a sign from the Almighty, or something equally self-deluded, is nothing. You have no real experiential knowledge from God, and nothing in terms of a two-way street of interaction with which to claim an actual relationship. All you have is the idea of God and the idea of a relationship with Him. And so that is where we'll leave things off for today. So thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like this video, comment, and subscribe so you'll always be notified when new videos come out. Until next time, I'm Professor Plink, reminding you to keep striving for greater understanding. It's the best way to get wherever you want to go.